All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. So, the 2024 edition of Major League Baseball's winter meetings is in the books, and there was plenty of business that was taken care of last week in Dallas. The biggest news, of course, has to be the New York Mets signing all star outfielder Juan Soto to that record 15-year deal for $765 million. dollars. And of course, we saw a fierce bidding war between the Mets and Yankees. They were at the top of that list. There were other teams involved as well. But nonetheless, they were. It was one of those where I didn't think the number would go that high. I didn't think the Yankees would go that high to try to retain Juan Soto. And then, of course, the Mets called their bluff, and the rest is history. Aiden, what's going on? How you doing? I'm definitely going to touch on the Max Fried going to the Yankees. So definitely hang tight right there. That was going to be the next point that I was going to make because credit to the New York Yankees because after losing out on Soto, it was one of those where, some people are saying, wow, what are the Yankees doing? This, that, and the third. And of course, the Yankees showed that they were willing to spend the money on Soto, but let's see how they were going to pivot. And they've been pivoting pretty good so far. And I think they're going to continue to pivot. We've seen the Yankees beef up their pitching staff and bringing in veteran lefty Max Fried as they signed him to an 8-year deal for $218 million. We've also seen the Yankees so far acquire closer Devin Williams from the Milwaukee Brewers. And for me, you look at Max Fried like this. Usually, you don't see teams that are going to give starting pitchers that many years on a deal. That's what the Yankees did. I know that Max Fried does have an injury history. However, if you want to be optimistic about this, the Yankees could come out of this smelling like a rose. You figure like this, he's a solid lefty. When he's healthy, he's one of the best left-handers in the game. And I think the Yankees are learning because they got to the postseason again. They got to the World Series, and they were done in by the Dodgers primarily because of Dodgers just had better pitching, and now they've lost Soto. Clearly, we know that, and trying to retool their everyday lineup. But you also have to go out there and retool this pitching staff. And I think, bringing in a guy uh, like Max Fried definitely helps that. I think Devin Williams, it's one of those where Devin Williams was lights out for the Brewers last year. I just wonder, okay, this is just my thought. Hopefully, if you're the Yankees, Devin Williams doesn't have the yips. And the reason why I say that is this: closers in baseball are like field goal kickers in football. When they're on, they are on. But sometimes when they get punched in the mouth, not literally, of course, it's tough for them to recover. We've seen kickers in football over the years who've been accurate miss a big kick in a big game, and it takes them a while to get back on track. We've seen the same thing with closers in baseball. The reason why I bring it up is this: Devin Williams was lights out last year for Milwaukee. Okay, we saw him in that decisive game in the wild card round with the Brewers up 2-0 in the game. I think they had one out in the ninth inning, and then of course Williams surrendered that 3-run home run to Pete Alonso of the Mets, which turned out to be the series clincher. And of course, Milwaukee lost. So you just have to wonder if that's going to linger over his head. Maybe a change of scenery will help in that. We've got to wait and see. But Aiden, getting to your point, um, I do think Cody Bellinger is going to get traded. It's just it's not a matter of if, it's more like when. We just saw the Cubs and the Astros make that deal, and of course, Kyle Tucker is headed to the Cubs. And I think if you read the writing on the wall, that means it's probably going to be it for Cody Bellinger. It's going to be interesting to see if somehow, some way, Cody Bellinger gets a new deal with somebody. Just throwing it out there because he really has never gotten a long term deal that he's been seeking. But nonetheless, I do think he finds a new baseball home, and it's just going to be interesting to see. Maybe a team like the Yankees, how aggressive are they going to be to possibly bring in a guy like Cody Bellinger to play the outfield. But nonetheless, you look at the Boston Red Sox, a big market franchise that's been very quiet for the past several years, and it's very interesting. The Red Sox have been operating like a small market team. Okay, we saw them give up some prospects to get starting pitcher Garrett Crochet from the Chicago White Sox, and it's one of those where you look at it. Maybe a change of scenery can help Crochet as well. He didn't have the best run support behind him last year. The White Sox were clearly the worst team in baseball. We all know that. But nonetheless, maybe a change of scenery will definitely help him. Brianna, how are you doing? You're saying that the Phillies won. Well, I got something to say about that. So definitely hang tight. And Aiden, you're saying the Jays have not got anybody to sign there. Toronto is very interesting because I think every single year, Toronto's a big market team, and we hear every single year Toronto's going after this guy, Toronto's in on this guy, and it ain't happening. And I think in the process, Toronto's about to lose some of their guys because I really don't see a scenario where Vlad Guerrero Jr. signs there long term. So I think, you know, this whole thing with the young Jays and turning things around, it was nice on paper, but at the end of the day, they really have not lived up to the hype. And I think Vlad Jr. Goes out someplace else. Willie Adamas going to the San Francisco Giants, and it gives them that's big for San Francisco because the Giants, in recent years, they have really struggled, okay, as far as being able to sign free agents there. And they got a new president of baseball operations, Buster Posey. Posey knows what it takes to win with this Giants organization. He was a part of 3 World Series champions there. And it's amazing that in less than one offseason, he's done more than his predecessor has done. Willie Adamas, I think, is a piece. He's not going to be the only piece for the San Francisco Giants. That has been a hard park for batters to hit in for quite some time. So I think Adamas, it's one of those. Was it an overpay? Probably. But nonetheless, you got to start someplace if you're the Giants to try to find a way, um, to try to turn things around and get stars there because it's not like the Giants have not been willing to spend money. And San Francisco is a very big market. So let's see if this is a start of big things for the Buster Posey tenure with the Giants. Hector, what's going on, my man? You're saying, do you think that the Yankees will sign Anthony Santander? Well, I think they're definitely going to be pushing for him, and I think they're in that mix. I think it comes down to whether or not the Yankees are going to sign Anthony Santander, or are they going to be able to trade for Cody Bellinger? So it's one of those where do you want to pay Bellinger and give up prospects, or do you just want to pay Anthony Santander? But I'll tell you like this. I think a guy like Cody Bellinger, with the way that he swings with that short porch at Yankee Stadium, could thrive. We saw Juan Soto put up some big numbers at Yankee Stadium this past season, playing with that short porch down the right field line. And it's one of those, I think, fitting in a guy like Cody Bellinger possibly to that scenario, he could be right in that mix as well. John S, what's going on? How you doing? Do I think that the Yankees will get Bellinger? I think they're going to be in on him. I really do. We know that they gave up, Nestor Cortez, and I think they gave up one big prospect, one of the bigger prospects to Milwaukee to give up to get Devin Williams. It's just going to be interesting to see how Brian Cashman is able to play. Let's make a deal with the Cubs. And also, let's see what other teams are going to be in on Cody Bellinger as well. Another name that I want to throw out there that possibly could end up with the Yankees, Nolan Arenado. I mean, you're talking about a guy in his prime, one of the best third basemen in baseball. First with Colorado and then with St. Louis. St. Louis is probably going to move him. He's probably going to move to first base. If you're the Yankees, you do have a hole there. You need a right fielder. And my other thing is this: getting back to Bellinger real quick, I'll say this. I think he could also fit a void for the Yankees because let's say the Yankees do trade for Bellinger. You could put him in center and then you could put Aaron Judge back in right field because I think, if Aaron Judge continues to play center field for the Yankees, it's going to take some years off of his career. I think he's a natural corner outfielder. You got a big guy like that lumbering around. covering center field, covering right center, covering left center. And then, you still want him to turn around, every 2 or 3 innings and go out there and slug for you. So at the end of the day, I think, if Judge goes back to right field, that would be big for the Yankees and big for his career. So that's why I think the Yankees are definitely going to make a push at Cody Bellinger. Aiden, what's going on? You're saying I see Roki signing next, then Corbin Burns signing with the Giants and Teoscar's going back to the Dodgers. Um, I think it's time for that second tier, if you will, because kind of like to me, this is just my opinion on this. I feel like with the winter meetings, it's more about the signings that are going to sell tickets. Okay, a guy like Juan Soto going to the Mets, clearly that's going to sell tickets for them. Wherever Soto signed, it was going to sell tickets. Um, it's kind of like round one in the NFL draft. Okay, there's the lights, the glitz, the glamour, this, that, and the third. Now that the dust has settled on the winter meetings, I think there's probably going to be a little pullback for the holidays. But nonetheless, I think this is going to pick back up in January. And then you're going to see the guys that are really going to go out there and make those impacts, guys who might not get the big time deals that we just saw happen at the winter meetings and just prior to the winter meetings, but guys who are definitely going to make impacts. And then from there, there's going to be the desperation factor because there's going to be guys who didn't get signed in that wave that were looking for long term deals and looking for big money. They're still going to get paid, but they're not going to get paid what they were seeking. And then they're not going to get the long term deals that they were anticipating. And of course, unfortunately for these guys, we've seen it in recent years where guys went into free agency expecting to strike it big. And of course, we've seen guys literally sign in spring training, and in some cases, towards the tail end of spring training. It happened with Cody Bellinger the first time around with the Dodgers, not with the Dodgers, I'm sorry, with the Cubs. And then he was seeking that long term deal last year, did not get it. He only got 3 years from the Cubs. But nonetheless, I think, the next big moves are probably going to be Corbin Burns. It's just a matter of where he goes. Teoscar Hernandez, he was a big time part of what the Dodgers were able to do in winning that World Series. The Dodgers want to bring him back. I think it just comes down to the years and the money. But, with that said, who's to say that somebody else, doesn't come through the side window and give Teoscar Hernandez an offer that he can't refuse. I'll tell you like this though, if he does go back to the Dodgers, that's only going to enhance their chances of getting back to and winning the World Series once again. Dodgers have had a good offseason so far. They've really beefed up their pitching. They brought back Blake Trinan, of course, the Blake Snell signing. And for me, very quietly, okay, a move for the Dodgers that I think is going to have an impact for them, Michael Conforto. Okay. Prior to the shoulder injury when he came up with the Mets, Michael Conforto was on his way to being a solid player for the Mets. He made one All Star appearance. He had a solid swing. Hasn't been the same since that shoulder injury. Did show some signs in San Francisco, but I do believe going to that Dodgers organization, going to that winning culture, I think that Conforto signing for 1 year, he's definitely a guy who could fly under the radar. Um, as far as Roki Sasaka goes, the Japanese pitcher, I think the big market teams are going to be all in on him. Most notably, I think the Mets. You look at it, the Mets really made a push to get Yamamoto before he decided to join the Los Angeles Dodgers. I remember Steve Cohen making multiple trips to Japan, to meet with him. And I think after last year, okay, especially not just from the Mets making the postseason, but also with the money that came off the books from for them. It's one of those where Steve Cohen, he's going to be off to the races. So I don't think that he's going to be outbid for Roki Sasaki's services. If I'm a betting man, I would say the Mets are the odds-on favorite, not guaranteeing that he'll go there, of course. Corbin Burns, I know some people were saying, well, maybe he'll go to the Mets. Um, after David Stearns, who's the Mets president of baseball operations, used to be the guy in Milwaukee. I don't see it happening because outside of Sasaki, okay, and we know that the Mets spent money on Kodai Senga, but David Stearns really doesn't like to go out there and give pitchers big time deals. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works. But I do think Corbin Burns is going to find himself a new baseball home much sooner rather than later. Um, you're also saying, Aiden, you're saying some of these players are Boris clients. Well, getting speaking of Scott Boris, he had egg on his face this time last year in free agency because remember, some of Boris's clients they were out there, and I mean they were out there until spring training, and of course, some of his guys recently have not delivered. Two guys that come to mind immediately. You think about Jordan Montgomery going to the Arizona Diamondbacks this past season. After being so vital in helping the Texas Rangers win the World Series in 2023. We've heard the comments of the Diamondbacks owner towards the end of the season as far as Montgomery's play. And then another guy that comes to mind, Chris Bryant. And you think about the fall from grace that Chris Bryant had. I mean, he came up with the Cubs. He was a rookie of the year in 2015. He was the MVP in 2016. Big piece of them winning the World Series. And I mean, he went to the Colorado Rockies, excuse me, got that big contract, and he has simply uh, been an afterthought. So, I mean, these guys are still out there, but I think, again, I think there's a lot of money that's still going to be spent. You also have a guy like Pete Alonso. I think with Pete Alonso, he's going out there and I think he's seeking uh, that mega deal. I don't think he gets a mega deal, okay, unless somebody is extremely desperate for his services. At this point, I think he goes back to the Mets. It's one of those. I don't think the Mets are going to try to lowball him. I think they're going to try to give him a deal which they feel is comparable. Pete Alonso, of course, is represented now by Scott Boras. For me, I kind of thought that maybe it would have been a package deal where the Mets, signed both Soto and Alonso at the same time. But I just don't think the Mets are going to look to overpay for Pete Alonso. The Mets definitely overpaid for Juan Soto. But I think, in my personal opinion, what the Mets gave Juan Soto is more than just baseball because you look at it. Steve Cohen is a businessman. Steve Cohen knows that he wants stars to go out there and help him sell tickets on a nightly basis to his park, and he's also looking to develop the land around City Field. Is possibly bringing a casino there. So nonetheless, it's one of those where, hey, you know what? You come to my park for the game, you stay for the atmosphere and the ambiance and all that other stuff. And I think Soto, fills a lot of those categories. Aiden, you're saying Oakland also got better, of course they're going to Sacramento and they're not even going to be called the Sacramento A's. They're basically just going to be called the A's. Um, I think that's a slap in the face, what's going on with the A's to everybody in Oakland, not just them leaving, but the fact that they're spending money right now. Of course, we saw them give Luis Severino 3 years and 67 million as a starting pitcher. I think this is a con game waiting to happen. To me, it's the Miami Marlins all over again. You remember when the Marlins wanted their new park, okay, their then owner, Jeffrey Loria, showed the desire to go out there and spend money, bringing in guys like Jose Reyes. There was several other big name free agents that he brought in as well. And as soon as he got his stadium, within a year, all of those guys were traded, and the Marlins were right back to being a small market team and operating like a glorified minor league franchise. I think the same thing is going to happen with the A's. I think John Fisher is trying to show a willingness to go out there and spend money. But by the time that they get to Vegas, the spending is going to stop. And I think the A's are going to be just like how they were for so many years. They're going to be near the bottom, if not at the bottom of payroll spending around Major League Baseball. Speaking of the A's, another team that's in the American League West with them, the Texas Rangers. There was talks about the Rangers looking to cut salary this offseason. They brought back starting pitcher Nathan Eovaldi on a 3-year deal for 75 million. It's one of those where Evaldi's been solid. He was solid for the Red Sox when they won back in 2018. And, it looks like he's found a home in Texas. And I think he's going to be a big part of the Rangers as they look to get back to the postseason in 2024. We also saw Texas pick up infielder Jake Berger from the Miami Marlins, and now you're putting him in that lineup with the likes of Marcus Simeon, with the likes of Corey Seager, and with the likes of Adolis Garcia. And the Rangers, they're definitely going to be once again being a fun hitting team. Speaking of the Blue Jays, we talked about them before. Them picking up second baseman Andre Jimenez from the Cleveland Guardians. That's going to be interesting to see how that works out. And then going back to the National League East, Brianna, you talked about the Philadelphia Phillies, a team that's not too far from Philadelphia, the Washington Nationals. They just won the MLB draft lottery. They got the first overall pick, and Mike Rizzo, who runs the front office down there, he's been stockpiling prospects, and I think the Nationals aren't that far off from turning this thing back around and once again becoming competitive. Aiden, you're saying things will slowly pick up soon, then we will get a load of silence. Absolutely. I think some of these teams are trying to wait some guys out. They're trying to wait some of these agents out because I'm sure teams and agents right now, at least, aren't close on the numbers, both for the years and the money for some of these guys. But again, it's going to be very interesting soon because you got some big names that are still out there. You got Walker Bueller out there. And I know Bueller, he probably wants to go back to the Dodgers, but at the same time, he wants to get paid, especially after his performance in the World Series in October. We've got Alex Bregman, the third baseman. I don't see him going back to the Astros because I think if you're Bregman, this is your opportunity to get paid. And I simply don't see the Astros doing it. You got Christian Walker of the Arizona Diamondbacks. We mentioned Anthony Santander. We got Teoscar Hernandez as well. And then another guy to keep an eye on, the veteran lefty Jose Quintana. He was injured at times with the New York Mets, but again, you got a veteran lefty, and it's one of those where you really can't underscore that. For me, we talked about the Mets with them signing Juan Soto. I do believe that the jury is still out on them, because it's one of those where signing Juan Soto alone is not going to be enough for the Mets. And I think the Mets are still going to be active in this offseason, whether it's free agents or trades. But I think free agency wise, aside from Soto and maybe Alonso or Sasaki, maybe. I think the Mets are going to keep it close to the vest as far as their spending. That's the way David Stearns has historically operated, especially from coming over, especially when you read the writing on the wall as far as how he did things with the Milwaukee Brewers. So I think it's a mixture of the Mets, the willingness to spend money by team owner Steve Cohen, and a guy who knows how to get more bang for his buck, like David Stearns. Aiden, you're also saying you heard a buzz about Bregman on the Yankees. Yeah, there has been talk about Bregman to the Yankees. It's one of those where you're hearing a lot of rumors. You're also hearing, like a little hiccup as far as the beef between the Yankees and the Astros from years ago with the sign stealing. I don't know how much that factors into it, but nonetheless, I definitely think Bregman could have a new baseball home. Definitely know if he goes to the Yankees, he won't be wearing number two because, of course, that's retired for the great Derek Jeter. But the landscape of MLB continues to change, because of course you've got some of these big market teams that are looking to avoid the luxury tax. You've got some of these big market teams, a la the Mets and Dodgers, who are basically, and even the Yankees at this point, who are basically saying, you know what, screw it. We're going to go out there, we're going to take care of our business, and we're going to do whatever it takes to field the team and field a winner. Some of these teams, like I said, they're also keeping it close to the chest, and some guys are keeping it. They're really relying on their player development. Of course, like a lot of the smaller market teams, they like to lock these guys up to long-term deals early on. Look at what the Kansas City Royals just did with Bobby Witt. That's an example of that. It's going to be interesting, like I said, which moves are going to be made next. That's the biggest thing that I think is coming down the pipe. But I think Corbin Burns, he's going to get himself a handsome contract. I truly do. I think Roki Sasaki, the Japanese pitcher, I think he's going to get paid. He might get paid more than Corbin Burns, believe it or not. Okay, that's going to be interesting to see how that works out as well. Where does Santander go? I think for my money, I think Teoscar Hernandez goes back to the Dodgers. That's just my personal opinion. Nolan Arenado and Cody Bellinger, like I definitely said, are two names to look after, as far as being on the trade front. Aiden, you're also saying Dodgers are the team to beat for now, but things could change. Yeah, listen, they finally got over that hump, if you will, because the Dodgers are right there every single year, and I think it finally came together for them. They got a bevy of MVPs in their everyday lineup: Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and of course Shohei. And then they have guys in that lineup that know how to get it done. The Max Muncies of the world and the Kike Hernandez's. And then, of course, they are just beefing up their pitching, and they just come after you in waves and waves and waves with their pitching. You just have to ask the Padres, the Mets, and the Yankees about that in the postseason, because those are the teams that the Dodgers did beat. But nonetheless, I think that the winter meetings were simply the tip of the iceberg, if you will, and I think there's more to come. Will anything happen between now and the Christmas holiday? Possibly. I think you could see some guys sign, but I think whoever does not get signed between now and Christmas, I think the money's going to be flying around come January, because I think agents and teams don't want to have this hanging over them heading into spring training, because you figure at this point, pitchers and catchers report for teams in about 60, maybe 70 days. So guys want to know where they're going, where they're going to be playing ball next year, and teams want to know how their respective rosters are shaped out. So I think, you know, basically come January 1st or after January 1st, there definitely is going to be a much heightened sense of urgency to get things done. Like I said, the winter meetings is all about the big moves, whether it's the free agent signings or the trades. Those were done. Okay. And now, like I said before, it's on to those secondary moves to see, how you fill out your team as you're looking to make that World Series push. And it's very important because you want to get that chemistry built early, because, we've seen, for most teams, the teams that get off to the good starts are the ones typically uh, that get to the postseason and make big runs. I know the Mets last year didn't fit into that category. They came on late, and the rest was history. But nonetheless, you want to try to have your guys in there for spring training. You want to have everybody on the same page. Big time action at the winter meetings. Let's see what the next step is going to be, and let's see where that next domino is going to fall as far as these free agent signings going. Of course, Soto made the big waves, going to the Mets. The Yankees, they haven't been slouches, and neither have the Dodgers. And honestly, to me, I think the biggest winners so far in the postseason, pardon me, in free agency or in the offseason rather, have been the Yankees and Dodgers. Dodgers have really beefed up their pitching staff. Credit to the Yankees simply for not resting on their laurels. They could have just, sulked about not getting Soto. Were they upset? Absolutely. But they said, hey, you know what? Let's move on. I love the moves that the Yankees have made, and I think they're going to continue to make. I like the aggressiveness from the Mets, and I think they're going to continue to be aggressive. Three of the biggest market teams have been the biggest movers and shakers so far. Aiden, you're saying as a Yankee fan, you got over Soto. Well, I'll tell you like this. My personal opinion, and I said it last year, when the Yankees got him, I thought he was a rental. I simply did not see him staying there that long. I think the Yankees knew that they needed another star. They needed another big bat. They needed somebody in that lineup with Aaron Judge. And it was one of those where Soto checked all of those boxes. However, he's a Boris guy. And those Boris guys, they don't like to sign um, long-term extensions before they hit free agency. They want to play things out. He turned down 440 from the Washington Nationals a couple of years ago, which is why he got traded to San Diego. You knew San Diego was not going to sign him long-term, especially due to the fact that the Padres are paying Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, and of course Fernando Tatis Jr. So after that, they were able to flip that around and get some prospects from the New York Yankees, and the Yankees rolled the dice. But Soto was integral to their success and them getting to the World Series this year. Because remember, Aaron Judge didn't come up big for the Yankees in the postseason. The guys that really carried that lineup, it was Soto and Giancarlo Stanton. But nonetheless, it's one of those where one guy doesn't make a team. I totally understand that. And the Yankees have a lot of other holes to fill, and they've been filling. Okay. So it's one of those. I think if you're a Yankee fan, and I'm not, but I think, Juan Soto did make an impact, but Juan Soto wasn't there long enough for you to be frustrated, if he left. It's a difference. It's not like when Robinson Cano left to join the Seattle Mariners. Okay. Robinson Cano, of course, was a homegrown guy. But I think, the shock in it for a lot of people is the fact that, hey, we have a situation here where Juan Soto said no to the Yankees, and that doesn't happen that often, especially when it's one of a guy who has played for their team in the previous year. But that was the case right here. Definitely uncharted waters because it's something that you don't see that often. But like I said before, not to sound like a broken record, definitely credit to the Yankees for the way that they have been able to pivot, and I think they're going to continue to pivot. I think the Yankees are still got some moves up their sleeve as far as trying to make some wheeling and dealing done this offseason to stay in that mix to possibly get that World Series championship come 2025. But nonetheless, solid offseason so far. Typical, the big market teams are spending money. Smaller market teams are trying to make moves that fly under the radar that are going to allow them to continue to compete. But at the end of the day, that's the name of the game in Major League Baseball. And the winter meetings are done and it's on to round two of free agency in MLB. But folks, that's going to wrap it up on this one. Oh, almost. Let's see. Pardon me, Aiden. You got to chiming in again. You're saying, how do I see the AL East shaping out? Well, I want to see how some more moves are made. Okay, I'll tell you that much. I don't think the Rays are going to be a factor. I think the first and foremost, the Tampa Bay Rays are retooling. Secondly, they don't know where they're going to be playing baseball at for 2025. So whenever you have a situation like that with teams, it kind of pushes them back. Toronto, they still got the talent, okay, but will they live up to the hype? That's the biggest thing with me for Toronto. Right now, I think it's the Yankees division to lose as of right now because you figure Baltimore's going to lose some of that talent. They're going to lose Anthony Santander. They're going to lose Corbin Burns. So how do they recover from those losses? We got to wait and see. But I think at this point, at least here in December, a lot of things can change between now and start of spring training. But nonetheless, at least at this point, I think the AL East is the Yankees to lose. Let's see how it plays out though throughout the rest of the offseason. But folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. As always, thank each and every one of you for chiming in. And if you like what you saw and heard on this podcast, please feel free subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, hit the alert button because I got plenty to talk about between now and the start of the baseball season, as well as through the baseball season, as far as things are going MLB, because there's going to be a lot more to cover because there's going to be more signings, of course, and there's also probably going to be more trades. Of course, we just saw some of them go down last week at the winter meetings because it's easier to get it done when you're face to face. And honestly, I think some of these deals were already on the back burner to begin with. But like I said, when you're face to face with somebody, it's easier to get it done. So nonetheless, there's still plenty to talk about MLB wise. So definitely stay tuned to this channel. Also, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. Aiden, Brianna, Hector, John, S. Thank you all for chiming in. Thanks for the comments. Aiden, trust me, it was definitely a pleasure. Great combo with you as well. Please do not be a stranger to this channel. That's the bottom line. Definitely appreciate the support. And once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.